I still smell the sterile antiseptic of the ICU, the metallic tang of the patient's blood on my gloves, the way my hands shook when the hospital's risk management team pulled me into a windowless conference room, 12 hours after my shift ended, and told me I was being investigated for a fatal medication error that had killed a 62-year-old heart patient. I'm a 7-year ICU nurse in Phoenix, the guy who stays 2 hours late every shift to make sure my patients are okay, the one who's never had a single medication error in my career. So when they slid the patient's chart across the table, showing a dose of insulin I'd supposedly given that was 10x the prescribed amount, I felt my stomach drop. I called my girlfriend, the only person I thought would believe me, and she said, "Maybe you were just tired, you worked too much. You should just take the blame and get it over with." That's the first reversal. My girlfriend, the woman I'd been dating for 2 years, was sleeping with the night shift charge nurse, Mark, the guy who'd signed off on the patient's chart after my shift ended, and she'd been telling him every detail of my schedule, my habits, my login codes for the medication dispensing system. Second reversal? I pulled the system logs from the medication machine, and the fatal dose had been given 2 hours after my shift ended, from a login that had been created using my employee ID, but from a computer in the nurse's station I'd never touched that night. Third reversal hit when I pulled the patient's full chart. Mark had been the one caring for the patient overnight, he'd given the wrong dose of insulin, realized the patient was crashing, and then altered the chart to make it look like I'd given the dose before I left, with the help of 2 other night shift nurses who'd hated me for reporting them for neglecting patients 6 months prior. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, staring at my nursing license in my hand, convinced I'd lose the career I'd worked my whole life for, when I remembered the security cameras in the ICU, the ones that covered every medication room and nurse's station. Fourth reversal? The hospital had tried to hide the footage, but I'd filed a formal request with the state nursing board, and the footage showed Mark logging into the medication machine with my ID, giving the fatal dose, and altering the patient's chart at 3 a.m., long after I'd left the hospital. I sent the footage, the system logs, the text messages between my girlfriend and Mark that I'd found on our shared iPad, and the previous neglect reports to the state nursing board, the hospital's CEO, and the patient's family. The fifth and final reversal hit 24 hours later. The hospital fired Mark and the 2 complicit nurses, turned them over to the police for manslaughter and falsifying medical records, and issued a formal public apology clearing my name. The patient's family thanked me for finding the truth, and the hospital promoted me to ICU shift supervisor 2 months later. I still work in that ICU, still care for every patient like they're my own family, but now I check every chart twice, lock my login codes down tight, and never trust anyone who tells you to just go along with it to keep the peace. The worst thing you can do in healthcare is look away when someone, making a mistake, and I'll never let anyone throw an innocent person under the bus to save their own job.